G'day, I'm DK.
And I'm Ardeet.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, a segment from the Australia Talks podcast.
Yeah, this is one of our favourite parts of bringing the podcast to you, our listeners.
So please enjoy this segment from the regular podcast.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man.
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk is about what's in the ground and what's not in the ground. This week, we're heading to southeast Queensland, my neck of the woods, specifically to the Sunshine Coast, even more specifically to Mount Coolum. That's right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk is a Two Ticks Mountain Talk. So, Mount Coolum is a geographical specific place, and it's also a suburb. So it's located in the northern Sunshine Coast, just north of the Sunshine Coast Airport, south of Noosa, and approximately it's about 100 kilometres north of the state capital of Brisbane. As I said, it is a suburb, but the suburb has just under 5,000 people that live there permanently. But what we're interested today is the mountain itself rather than the town. The name Coolum derives from the Gubbi word Coolum or Coolum, which means without or wanting. Probably referring to the Aboriginal legend of the mountain's head being knocked off in a fight with Nindari, with the head becoming Majimba Island, which is an island just off the coast to the southeast. And you'll remember the Gubbi people from my recent episode on on Rainbow Beach, also located in the Sunshine Coast. It's about 75 kilometres north of Mount Coolum. So they had a reasonably big range for an Aboriginal sort of nation in this area, which is pretty cool. So what makes this mountain interesting, I hear you say? Great question, I say back to you. So bear with me as I attempt to explain some interesting geology to you. Roughly 26 million years ago, what is now Mount Coolum was created. It is a laccolith, which is basically where magma flows between layers of subsurface rock. So if you can imagine, if we slice the earth in half, you've got magma sort of bubbling up through a channel into like a larger reservoir underground between layers of rock. And that kind of makes like a dome-shaped bulge. Think like injecting jam or like cream or something into a bun, like a donut. And if that jam became solid, and then you took the bun away, the shape that you'd be left is sort of like a dome, flattened on the bottom and a dome shape in the middle.
That's not a bad description.
And that's basically what happened. And over the next 23 million years, the surrounding softer sandstone eroded away, exposing the solidified magma, which is much harder rock, and it's erosion-resistant rhyolite, which put a pin in that for later because this will be relevant. What's quite cool is this process often causes large hexagonal cooling columns that are prominent in the rock around the margin of the dome. And these can clearly be seen on a summit walk that passes over what appears to be large rock steps, but are actually a natural part of the formation. As the columns cool, they are nearly horizontal, and some have low outward sort of dips. And over time, several incised gullies have formed inferior waterfalls on the summit. So if you do go up during rainy periods, you can see these gullies become an active waterfall. I wouldn't recommend climbing the mountain during the rain because it is quite slippery. But if you are in the area when it's pouring with rain, you will see the waterfalls off the mountain, which is pretty cool as well. So today, actually, those hexagonal cooling columns are quite common in other parts of the world. The Giant's Causeway in Scotland, the Devil's Tower in, I want to say, Utah. Now that I say that, my American listeners are probably going, "What? It's not." Let me double check. Where is the Devil's Tower? Wyoming. I was very wrong. I apologize. I apologize. Formed in a similar way. So you get those really cool hexagonal columns, which don't feel like they are natural, but they are, which is really cool. Today, the Mount Coolum rises 208 meters above the Sunshine Coast and is completely covered in trees and wildlife. And it is really the only prominently large hill in the immediate area, which has brought a lot of focus on it in the past and even today. It currently receives about 200,000 visitors a year to it, which is pretty cool. And yes, you can climb it. There is a 1.6 kilometer long track that climbs Mount Coolum from the east, starting at the car park at Tanner Street West. And the lower part of the track is well formed and quite gentle, but it very quickly becomes quite steep. And some of the track isn't the greatest because you are now starting to walk on those large hexagonal cooling columns, and as a result, they appear to be stairs, but they're naturally formed, which is pretty cool. It can be a bit tricky, and it is very rough, and especially can be dangerous and slippery when wet. So we would recommend don't go there on a good day, which in this part of the world is most of the year. Be careful if it does start raining, and particularly if you're up there and you have to come back down. The whole walk it doesn't take a particularly long time. It's about a 30-40 minute walk. There are lots of stairs, though, obviously. And
wow, I'm just looking. I just did it because you've said that a couple of times about the stairs. They actually look as though someone has deliberately made them.
Yes, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
This natural formation does look like blocks. And in other parts of the world, they have people have speculated that ancient civilizations have created walls or stairs or things like that. But no, it is literally a natural formation.
Wow.
Planet Earth has done it itself. Some of those rocks on that climb have been positioned so that obviously it is easier.
Sure,
but yes, a lot of them are natural forming, which is really, really cool. There's no wheelchair access, unfortunately, at this time. I know I shouldn't have to say that, but just so you know, if you are mobility impaired or you're with an older person or something like that, this probably isn't the walking track for you. It's not what I would call a strenuous climb, but it is just something you need to be aware of. So, what's so bloody interesting about this thing, I dare you say? Post-war, Australia was at a time of great enthusiasm and hope for the future. And Australians all over the country were once again rushing to find valuable rocks, though this time it wasn't gold, silver, or even coal. The new wonder element everyone was looking for was uranium. And the federal government offered up to £25,000 tax-free to significant deposits of uranium that were easily mined. That's the equivalent of $1.9 million today. So we had a bit of a uranium rush. And let me introduce our story's protagonist, Mr. George Groth. By trade, Groth was a station master in Nambour, one of the neighbouring towns, and he was a bit of an amateur geologist. In 1952, he began prospecting around Mount Coolum, and he noticed that his Geiger counter began ticking near an outcrop of oxidized stone, which was about 200 meters long, and he figured it must be a uranium vein. It did appear, in his defense, visually similar to other uranium veins found elsewhere. And the excitement hit the tiny town of around 200 people at this time. And honestly, the excitement was immeasurable. Local paper even published the headline, "Uranium deposits at Coolum are favorable." People were ecstatic. Groth estimated that he was sitting on 200 acres of mineable uranium, which would have completely transformed the local community. At this time, there wasn't even electrical power in Coolum. They didn't even have sealed roads. So the locals were dreaming very big of what the sort of the revolution that was about to take hold in this little pocket of the world. And as a result, their fortunes would be favored. At the time, there was only a single shop in town. So this sleepy little village was going to be transformed overnight. At least that's what they thought. Foreshadowing. The government sent 2 government scientists to assess the situation, and they quickly assessed that the samples need to be sent to Melbourne for analysis. But we're pretty certain that this was not a uranium ore vein or anything like that. What they noticed was the further the samples got from the mountain, the weaker their radioactivity appeared to become, which is a bit odd and certainly not something that uranium does. By the 4th of September, 1952, the answers came in and were pretty concrete. Geiger counters are indiscriminate devices. They measure radioactivity, not chemical composition, of course. So yes, the rocks were radioactive, but they were not uranium. Instead, Mount Coolum was not comprised of uranium-bearing rocks. What transpired was basically the element Groth had found wasn't uranium, but it was potassium, which formed as a peralkalite rhyolite rock, which is also sometimes called comendite, which forms as Mount Coolum broke down, like the actual rocks of Mount Coolum broke down in contact with the air as the sandstone that had once covered it was eroded away. So Groth had discovered radioactivity in Mount Coolum National Park, but it was from naturally degrading rhyolite rocks breaking down into radioactive potassium, not uranium. I'm very grateful for that because fortunately for the people of Coolum, the area was not mined for uranium. Instead, the large uranium deposits were found elsewhere in the country, and they didn't get their sealed roads. They didn't get their massive gold rush boom that they were hoping for, and all the excitement settled down. Groth, unfortunately, very much did not agree and was really pushing that he had discovered something significant here, but the reality of the situation eventually dawned on him, and he did give up. Thankfully, they didn't rip up the mountain and mine it for uranium and, sort of destroy what I think is a pretty cool place. But instead, they did eventually get the sealed roads and electricity, just in time as things progressed. I can contest that there is electricity in Coolum today. And you can visit Mount Coolum and give it a climb if you are in the area. A bit of a quirky story and a bit of a fun history for I think even a lot of people in the area probably wouldn't know. I certainly didn't know this history, so I would have to shout out the YouTube channel Breathe Deep and Seek Adventure for this topic and this story. As he inspired this Two Ticks Town Talk. He's got a great channel exploring Southeast Queensland's history and Australian history in general. I've put his channel in the show notes, so if you like these sort of stories, go give him some love. He is fantastic at finding really obscure little histories especially if you live in Southeast Queensland. He's got some fantastic stories in the local area about things that you probably drive past every day and have no idea that that's what's going on. So big shout out to him. Really, 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 really fantastic work that he does. And he very much is the inspiration for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk on the radioactive but not uranium Mount Coolum.
Well, sounds very interesting. I liked your description of how it formed. That was a good description. I could visualise that. And when I'm up that way, it's going to be something that I look at and think, oh, okay, now I might have I don't know if I necessarily have a desire to climb all the way to the top, but at least to check it out. So yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, bummer for the crushing disappointment for the town. I suppose don't count your atoms before they're split. Lesson for those poor buggers. But I can imagine just those dreams of thinking, oh, just start planning all these things, and yeah. But look, I suppose it does happen. But that's an interesting little story. Wouldn't have known any of that.
Yeah, it is one of these ones. It's funny because you sort of go, how exciting it would have been at the time, thinking, oh, wow, all of this progress is going to happen. But I actually think it would have probably been more of a curse than a blessing to dig up the local area and the community. Today, if you're not familiar with the area today, I think there's a couple of golf courses around the base of Mount Coolum, a very thriving sort of community. The Sunshine Coast Airport is sort of essentially right next door. It's within a kilometre. It's like a stone's throw away, And actually, I think one of the navigation lights is up on the top of Mount Coolum as well, just, in case anyone goes a little bit lopsided as they're coming in or taking off. I think it would have been a real shame if it had, in fact, been a uranium deposit and had mined it all up and stuff like that. The cost of progress would have been very, very high. Right. As a result, organically, it's progress has come and all of that. It's all come to town and all of that. So and it is quite a lovely part of the world these days. So I think it would have been a real shame if it was all dug up. Lots of agriculture in that area too. So I can imagine the uranium tailings probably wouldn't have been great for agriculture in the local area and all that as well. So,
yeah, possibly.
Yeah. So I think
it looks like a good place to have a walk too.
Yeah, definitely.